Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel ManojWeb, where my goal is to make your front-end life easier. In today's video, we're going to be having a look at CSS variables and how you can use that to make your website responsive much more easily. So without any further ado, let's get started. So what you see here is a simple website which we will be making responsive. As you can see on the right side, it seems to work pretty well, right? But if I put it on a bigger screen, it spreads out way too much and we want to change that. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be using CSS variables to make this website responsive. So let's have a look at our page so far. In the HTML file, we just have the title. We have a H1, the CSS variables explained. We have 3 paragraphs with a class of special. Each are like these ones. And then we have 3 spans with a class of extra. And in the styles, okay, let me close that and move that around here. In the styles, I just set the box sizing to border box. The background, I have a radial gradient, and I just have a display of flex to center everything. And I'm using dynamic viewport height. If you don't know what dynamic viewport height is, you can check it out on my previous video where I talked about the top 5 features that are new to CSS, and dynamic viewport height is one of them. And in the H1, we sized it with 2 rem, yellow background, border radius, and padding. The special, we give it some padding, a linear gradient, which is the same for the extra. We gave it a border radius, color, and text shadow, and the same for extra. And when you hover on the extra, also have this effect. That's pretty much the structure of the page right now. And what we will be doing next is refactoring the CSS to make it work, like to make it easier to update basically. So what we can do is create CSS variables. And how CSS variables work is you can create them in the root, which is like the main, like the whole, it's one thing that encompasses the whole page. And you can define a variable by first writing 2 dashes and then the name of the variable. Let's say background body. It's like the background of the body. Then you write colon and then the value of that variable. So in this case, we want the value to be this radial gradient, right? Because we can replace this radial gradient with this variable value, which will be equal to this radial gradient. So I can do Control X there, Control V here. So now what we did is created a variable called background body, right? Which is equal to this radial gradient. If I were to save this now, you can see the background went away, because when you want to give the value of a variable to a property, you can write var and then write the variable name inside. So in this case, it's background body, right? And VS Code is already telling me. If I save that, you can see it went back to normal, because it's basically just copying this and putting that over here. It's the same thing. And what we can do is create another variable for the backgrounds of the special and the extra ones. So bg text, and I'll just copy this linear gradient here, Control X, put that here, right? And then just here I'll write var of bg text and var of bg text. So what this allows us to do is contain all of our information on the top over here, so we don't have to constantly find the information within these different selectors. So now if ever I want to update the background of this text section right here, right, and this, because they both have the same background, what I can do is just change this to red and like change this to red and then change this to red, and automatically change it for both of them without me having to go looking for this specific selector. And this also makes it easier to make stuff responsive, because what I can do is when I create a media query, let's say I want the min width, so like when it's at least 800 pixels, when the width is at least 800 pixels, I can go to the root and set the bg text equal to red, right? So now if I do this, right now the width is less than 800, so it's like that. But as soon as I go above 800, as you can see, it turned to red, because I just updated the variable. So that makes it a lot easier to make stuff responsive, and that's how we're going to make this website responsive. So let's create some more variables for some of the other values, and then I'll see you back. Back. So I've created 3 more variables. I created a variable for the text padding because we can change the padding as we shrink in size, and the font size, which we can increase as we increase in size. And the font, I created 2 font sizes, one for this whole thing, this, and one for the heading as well. And actually I'll create a normal font size as well, which will just be 1 rem, because that's gonna be for the extra. I'll do font size equals var fs100, right? So now we should be able to make it responsive as we get bigger, as the size gets bigger and as the size gets smaller. So let's get some of our sizes, right? So first let's do media query between the size of, if it's bigger than 1200 pixels, let's say. Let's see where 1200 pixels stands. So if I were to resize this, so around this much is 1200 pixels. So bigger than this, we can make the font size a lot bigger. And yeah, we can make these font sizes a lot bigger and just increase the padding. So if it's greater than 1200 pixels, I will go to the root. fs100 is going to equal, let's say, 1.5 rem. fs125 is going to equal, let's say, 2.25 rem. And fs200 is going to equal, like, let's say, 3 rem. If I were to save that, as you can see, at 1200 bigger, it gets a lot bigger. And then when it gets to a smaller size, it goes back to normal. So I'll say that's decent enough. And I was going to increase the padding as well. Text pad, I'll make that 30 pixels, 50 pixels. That might be a lot. Well, actually, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. So that's for min width 1200. I'll create another media query where the max width is 199 pixels. And I think this was how you said and min width, so it's between these two numbers. Let's say, so from 800 to 1200, how about that? From 800 to 1200 pixels, I'll go to the root. I'll make the text padding, I'll make the text pad like 15 pixels and 25 pixels. I'll make the font size 100, 1.22 rem. I'll make the font size 125, probably like 1.4 or 1.3 rem. I'll make the font size 200, like 2.25 rem. Let's look at that. I'll say that's pretty decent. So it goes from here to 1200, where the sizes should be bigger, and then when it gets below 800, it decreases. And let's say below, if it's below 500, no, if it's below, let's say if it's below 400, I'll decrease the sizes, or 420, let's say. So if the max width is 420 pixels, what we'll do is go to the root, change the text pad to like 5 pixels, 10 pixels, change the font size 100 to 0.7 rem, font size 125 to 1 rem, and then font size 200 to like 1.5 rem. Let's have a look at that. So now if I were to, well, actually I can just do it here. So now if I go below 420 pixels here, you'll see the size decreases suddenly. Yep. And I think that's good. I can add another media query just just to show variables a bit more. So when it goes below 320, right? So we can add another media query, and I'll have to add and here. So 321 pixels, media max width, and this will be the last media query, 320 pixels. So if it's less than 320 pixels, we'll go to the root again, do text pad equals let's say 3 pixels on all sides. We'll do font size 100 equals 0.5 rem, font size 125 equals I'll say 0.7 rem, and then font size 200 equals 1 rem. So if I were to do that, and now if I go here, as you can see, it got a lot smaller. So now we made it responsive using CSS variables, and that's how they work. You can just write them in the root, or you can actually write them in the normal selectors as well. So I can create a variable here and give it a text padding 50 pixels, right? That would still work. You could still use that, but you can't use that anywhere else. You can only use it in the special class then. So it doesn't really have much of a point in there. The reason we do it in the root, because the root encompasses all of the whole DOM, so we can access these variables from anywhere. So that's pretty much it for CSS variables. I hope you enjoy. I hope you learned something new. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share, and see you next time.